Last time on Mirror of Resentment, My Twin Sister's Envy, Emma had successfully convinced Ella and William that she had turned a new leaf. However, behind her smiles and seemingly warm gestures lay a deep-seated envy and bitterness, ready to unfurl and wreak havoc on their lives. Although Emma's parents initially didn't believe her sudden change of character, she worked tirelessly to convince them over the next few weeks that she was remorseful and would not return to her old ways. Unbeknownst to them, Emma hadn't changed one bit. She was hiding her evil intentions behind her pretentious smiles and hugs. Little did her family know that she was always plotting to destroy her sister's marriage. Since she had messed her academic life up and had nothing going for her, she wanted to ruin her sister's happiness. The depth of her jealousy and resentment was far from over. Ella was thrilled to be spending quality time with her twin sister. She finally had the sister she always wanted in Emma. Emma had successfully pulled off convincing everyone that she had changed, and she felt it was time to start putting her evil plans into motion. On the day Ella was to get her measurements for her wedding dress, Emma offered to make her some juice to calm her nerves and added laxatives to it. When it was time to get the measurements done, Ella could not leave the house, so she asked Emma to go in her place for the measurements since both of them were the same size, which is what Emma was hoping for. Ella's parents had given her some medicine to help with her upset stomach, so she eventually made it for her measurements, which infuriated Emma. Her plans had failed. Emma refused to give up on destroying her twin sister Ella's happiness. She met up with a male friend of hers who was just as devious and crafty. She offered to pay him a huge amount of money if he would pretend to be Ella's boyfriend and show up to a date William and Ella would be at that night. He would then accuse Ella of cheating on him, planting the seed of doubt in William's head. He agreed, and Emma made the payment. William and Ella arrived at their date and were having a good time when a guy showed up and started accusing Ella of being his girlfriend. William asked Ella if she knew the guy, and she told him she didn't know him. Perhaps he was mistaken and confusing her for someone else, maybe even her twin sister. William believed her, and security escorted the pretender out. He called Emma to inform her that their plans had failed. Ella bid her sister farewell as it was time for her to return to the States for her graduation. Emma had time while her sister was away to plot an evil plan that Ella could never escape. Ella, her parents, William, Susan, returned to the States for graduation. Ella graduated at the top of her class, earning the title of valedictorian. William, Susan, Grace, and Nathan also graduated with honors. Jasmine and Simon couldn't be happier for their daughter's accomplishments. While Ella was back in the States, Emma had enough time to concoct an even more sinister plan to rid herself of her twin sister for good. The bitterness and envy that festered within her drove her to devise a scheme that she believed would not only destroy Ella but ensure Emma's unhindered claim to the life she so coveted. William and Ella spent some time in the States before returning back to the island for their wedding, along with William's parents. A week passed since graduation, and it was time to return to Jamaica, as that's where their wedding would be held. Since Ella had been fitted for her wedding gown and all preparations were made by hers and William's parents, she had some time to relax and enjoy her beautiful island with her husband-to-be and her twin, Emma. The wedding day was fast approaching, and Emma made several attempts to make William notice her. However, all her efforts failed, as William was always with Ella, deeply engrossed in their wedding preparations and spending quality time together. It was the morning of Ella and William's wedding, and everyone was still asleep except for Emma and Ella. Emma invited Ella for a walk to calm her nerves before the wedding and share some sisterly bonding. They shared some laughs together. Emma expressed to Ella that she'd love to resume her studies, even if she had to work her way through college since she had lost her scholarship. Ella told her she was proud of her and would support her in any way she could. Time passed, and they had been lost in conversation, not realizing how far they had walked. Emma suggested visiting their favorite childhood river for a swim before they returned home. Ella knew her sister had always loved that place. Though she initially hesitated, she eventually agreed to go along, trusting her twin. Once they arrived at the river, Emma went in for a swim and urged Ella to join her. Ella initially refused, knowing that she couldn't swim. However, Emma assured her that she would keep her safe, just like when they were children. Trusting her sister, Ella entered the water, but instead of protecting her, Emma pushed her into the deepest part of the river, knowing Ella couldn't swim. She quickly left the scene and returned to the house, pretending as though nothing had happened. Emma had finally used the love and trust her twin sister Ella had for her against her, luring her into her trap. Emma snuck back into the house without being noticed. She went into the bridal suite, knowing that no one would enter except for Susan. She made every effort to avoid her parents and William until she had successfully transformed herself into Ella. She didn't need to do much, as they were identical twins. Emma had finished changing her appearance to mimic Ella, even adding the beauty spot Ella had to her own face. She planned to impersonate her sister, steal her identity and life, and marry William in her place. She figured since she couldn't have her own happy ending, she was going to steal her twin sister's life, believing this would finally give her the happiness she desired. It was now a few hours before the wedding, and everyone was preparing for the ceremony. Emma's real identity remained hidden, and she was convinced she could pull off her impersonation. Emma was dressed in her sister's wedding gown, looking at herself in the mirror with no thought or remorse for her trusting twin sister, whom she had pushed into the river and left for dead. She continued as if nothing had happened. Suddenly, she heard a bang on the door. It was Susan, notifying her that it was time to come out as the wedding would start soon. Susan asked, "Where is Emma, the maid of honor?" Not knowing Emma was the one she was speaking with, pretending to be Ella. Emma responded, telling Susan that she hadn't seen her in a few hours. All this time, William never saw Ella because it was considered bad luck to see the bride on the day of the wedding before she walked down the aisle. Emma had crafted a letter, explaining to her family that she had left home because she couldn't bear her family's disappointment. She mentioned her intention to get her life together and return when she could. Emma urged them not to look for her, convinced that they'd never be able to locate her. She planned all this meticulously so that no one would search for her after she disappeared right before Ella's wedding. This way, she could get rid of Ella, take her place, and no one would notice or suspect anything, especially because Emma was known to leave for weeks, sometimes months at a time. Emma was fully dressed and ready to walk down the aisle, a beautiful veil covering her face. She was ecstatic to finally be marrying William. She didn't mind pretending to be her twin for the rest of her life. Emma was smiling from ear to ear as she covered her face with her veil, preparing to walk down the aisle. The wedding was about to begin when someone shouted, "Stop!" All eyes turned to see Ella standing at the entrance. Everyone was bewildered because Ella was dressed as the bride, ready to marry William. Ella narrated the entire story to everyone, explaining how Emma had deceived and tricked her into following her to the river, all along with the intention to drown her. After pushing her into the deepest part of the water, Emma abandoned her there to die. Luckily, a fisherman was nearby and saw her struggling, and came to her rescue. Emma, in her panic, tried to flee the scene but was soon apprehended by some of the wedding guests, and the police were called. While being detained, Emma was confronted by Ella as to why she did all this to her, and why she went to this extent to harm her just to take over her life. Emma confessed to Ella everything she had been doing to break up her relationship since she started planning her wedding. Emma had always been jealous of her twin and her accomplishments. Everyone loved Ella while avoiding Emma due to her bad character. Her parents were always proud of Ella because she was respectful and obedient. Though their parents loved both twins equally, they even pampered Emma more than Ella, thinking she'd change. However, Emma was never satisfied. Jasmine was overcome with emotion, thinking of her own past with her evil stepmother Mirabelle, and how her wickedness eventually led her to prison. She pondered why Emma had allowed envy to consume her and harm her own twin sis. She wept for her daughter as the cops took her away. Emma was in tears and begged Ella for forgiveness before she was taken away by the police. She expressed that she was sorry for everything she had done, but Ella knew that her sister's actions had caused significant damage and she was in big trouble. William was still in shock and couldn't believe Emma was capable of such evil. He suggested they postpone the wedding for another day so everyone could recover from everything Emma had done. He was just happy his beloved Ella was saved, and they thanked the fishermen profusely for rescuing Ella from the river and preventing a tragedy. Ella decided she was going to go ahead with her wedding. She was done allowing Emma to ruin every good thing in her life. She was not going to let her sister stop her from walking down the aisle and becoming William's wife. Emma's actions had only strengthened Ella's determination to move forward and embrace her happiness. Though the day started off in turmoil and confusion, it ended in smiles. The wedding ceremony became the talk of the town, and William and Ella were finally united and married. Despite the challenges and the malevolent actions of Emma, love triumphed, and they celebrated the beginning of their new life together. Emma had her day in court. Despite her pleas, she was sentenced to 7 years in prison for her attempt to take her sister's life. Ella had testified on her behalf, showing compassion even after everything Emma had done. Life moved forward for Ella and William. They returned to the United States and began their careers as attorneys, eventually opening their own law practice. Their success and love for each other continued to grow. While Emma served her time in prison, Ella visited her occasionally to check on her well-being. Emma expressed her sincere remorse and pleaded for forgiveness. Ella forgave her sister but reminded her that there were consequences for her actions. Has Emma truly repented from her past evil ways, or is she just waiting for the next opportunity to continue her wickedness? Stay tuned for the concluding part. Did you enjoy this content? Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss any updates.